Welcome now to the Inside the Eyeball podcast presented by the Shreveport-Bossier City Advocate, Ross Dellenger with Yahoo Sports. Ross, always grateful for your time. You do such a great job covering this sport, and I know it's turned into much more than just football now, so we appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem. Good to be on with you guys.
So we talked a little bit before we got you on a crazy week here. We were going to talk a lot about transfer portal, all that kind of stuff, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't start with the college football playoff. So on a few different levels, I guess right now there's a lot of talk and a lot of movement on both the 2025 version of the college football playoff, but then also I know there's been a lot of talk and news coming out about 2026 and beyond. I guess my first question is, so now we're, the immediate 2025, it looks like it was announced that it's a straight seating format, and, the financials are still, I guess, going to be going to the conference champions, obviously, or, their chunk of money. I guess my first question is, with all the movement and all the changes, Art and I talked a little bit before this, before recording this, is there ever going to be enough change? In 2026, we're going to have three champions that have basically won in three different formats, or I guess, once it probably moves to 14 or 16, there'll be three different champions in 3 different years that have all won kind of in different formats. Are we just going to continue to see movement and changes?
Yeah, it is crazy when you think about. Actually, if you go back to, I think if they change in 26, like they plan on doing it, and you have a straight seating change, 25, and you move to 12 teams from 4 and 23, and then you had 4 teams, and so you actually have 4 different formats in 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's pretty wild, but I guess it's a little indicative of the time right now in college athletics, where it does seem like every day there's some new change, whether it's conference realignment, all that, or anything else. But I think conference realignment had the biggest impact, obviously, on all of this that we're talking about, because that's why the straight seating, I think, became necessary, I guess, is because you had the 12-team playoff, the original format, where it granted the top 4 seeds to only conference champions. That was created during a time when you had 5 power conferences that were all fairly equal or close to equal, certainly more closer than they are now. And then when you have 4 that are fairly unequal, and 2 of them with a lot more bigger brands. And so the idea is you got to change the format to mirror the change in conference realignment. And I think what you're seeing in the discussions on 2026, if for similar reasons, right? You look at what the Big Ten and SEC kind of are trying to do, so to speak, and that's grant their leagues multiple automatic qualifiers, partly because of the expansion of the big brands that they assumed. And so it's an interesting dynamic right now with that, because the SEC and Big Ten last spring, got control of all future format, because basically they threatened to leave if they didn't have control of all future format, and all the other conferences gave them control, and now they're exercising that control. And there's been some pushback, as you might imagine. The ACC and Big 12 want more than just 2 automatic qualifiers if their competitors, the Big Ten and SEC, are getting 4. And right now, it kind of seems like they're at an impasse.
And Ross, you bring up a lot of good points about the conference realignment having the biggest effect on this. And Eric and I were talking before about just the different, trial by error of each year the playoff is going to be. And do the conferences, like you said about the automatic qualifications, do they change that in the next coming years? And I think everybody's looking at that magic year of 2031. And correct me if I'm wrong, is that when Florida State and Clemson could just leave the ACC? Is all of this just gearing up towards just a huge shift at that point?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could probably happen. That could alter the landscape in between 29 and 32 or so. The Big 12 and Big 10's television deals come open during that stretch. As you mentioned, the ACC's exit fee drops to an affordable level for teams to exit around then. The college football playoff deal comes open in 2031. It's the last year of it under the current contract. And then in 2032, the NCAA tournament, that's the last year of the NCAA basketball tournaments. So you've got like all these things, this confluence of events that happen over this 3-year stretch or so, where you'll have very likely have more conference movement, and you'll very likely have the football and basketball championships potentially look differently. Probably, probably look a lot. The basketball tournament is probably, I would assume, look a lot more like the football CFP does right now, where you have access that is greater for the power conferences than the other leagues. And then, by that time, that's 5 years into this revenue sharing agreement. Even if the House case, the taping, we don't know yet if it's been approved, but even if it's not approved, revenue will be shared with athletes directly. It's going to happen. And so you'll be 5 years into whatever kind of revenue sharing, which is just going to separate everybody even more. So you're looking at a real big change in the landscape of college athletics by 2032 or so.
And obviously, we all know that before, you don't ever get the end of that college football playoff 2031 deal, or the next cycle of things for changes to happen. Do you anticipate, even, let's just say they move to the next playoff, 16-team playoff, like everybody is kind of pointing to, or saying that that's going to happen? Do you think there will be little tinkers, more changes in between, that 2026, 2031, cycle?
Well, I think the way the contract probably will end up reading, because the long form isn't really done yet. They just signed the memorandum of understanding that really, as y'all know, kept the CFP alive and intact, and extends the CFP 6 more years. And it's just a memorandum of understanding, but I think they're in the middle of the long form, and I would expect the long form document to have in it a look in for the Big Ten and SEC specifically to change basically whenever they want, change anything they want whenever they want, especially with format. So I think at any point, you'll probably have those leagues have the ability to probably go in and tweak more. And I think conference makeup, not that I expect huge conference shifts in the next 2 or 3 years, more so like we talked about, more 5 to 6 to 7 years away. So I don't necessarily expect conference shifts in the next 3 or 4 years, but so I wouldn't think they would have to change anything. But then again, as we've begun talking about, everything's changing like so quickly. So, it wouldn't surprise me if they do use the look-in stuff to continuously tinker and tweak whatever playoff format that they end up deciding this year will be the 2026 playoff for the next 6 years.
I think a question, obviously, we were with the Independence Bowl, so bowl games are always on our mind. I think the one thing in the bowl world that everybody's kind of wondering about this next cycle is where are these games going to be played? Is there? I'm guessing that there's going to be a push, and there already is a push for more on-campus games. Is that a reality, and how far does that push for the on-campus games? Into what rounds do you think?
Yeah, right now the first round's on campus, obviously, and then quarters and the semis are rotated with the six bowls. Um, there there is definitely a push from a segment of whether it's fans or college athletic administrator types, coaches, whoever, in getting the quarterfinals at home sites as well. I mean, that's been clear by enough people that there are plenty of problems with that. And um, I think a lot of those problems were exposed last year in the playoff when you just had one on campus. And I went to two of the on campus games. I went to Ohio State, I went to Notre Dame. And they were awesome. And I spent the night before at Notre Dame and all that day. It was like, it was snowing and there were fans everywhere and students came back and it was awesome. But it is a huge undertaking in the middle of for a school in the middle of commencement and graduation stuff. And it was really, really cold. Uh, Not only Notre Dame, but Ohio State the next day was colder. It was really cold. And I don't think that those programs that are in climates like that, which is a lot of Big Ten programs, pretty much all of them, are going to want to play a second game. For one, just the weather in general and the risk of the climate and the weather, and two, just the undertaking again of and this is for anybody that's located anywhere, hosting a second game is just difficult. So I it would surprise me if those games were taken out of the bowls. Those quarterfinals were taken out, or the semis were taken out of the bowls. Certainly not the semis. That doesn't even seem to be a conversation. But it would surprise me that the quarters were taken out in the next 3 to 5 years, or maybe through the end of the contract, even 6, 7 years. I would it would be surprising because of those factors of climate plus kind of just the undertaking of a second having a hosting a second game, so two games within in 8 day span on a college campus in the middle of graduation, in the middle of December, in the middle of when places often shut down.
Yeah, and you talk about the undertaking, and I think that would become even more of a task moving forward if if the some of the talk about moving the schedule forward, a weekend or so, even closer to Selection Sunday, that makes it even harder. Shifting gears a little bit to the other fantastic thing we talk about in college football, the transfer portal. Obviously, the Independence Bowl had a tough year because of the transfer portal. Made it work, but that's something that all bowl games, I think, are worried about now and have been for a few years, even more so now. I know there's been a talk from the coaches from the AFCA of a recommendation of a one-time transfer portal or one window in January. Then obviously we have the problem with getting kids into classes and enrolled for the spring semester. What's the movement on the transfer portal, the windows? Is it possible there's still multiple windows, one window in the winter? Could we move to one in the spring? What's kind of any movement, if any, on there?
Yeah, I think all of this is kind of contingent again on that House settlement being approved. So they're kind of waiting for the settlement news to come in before they make any of these moves. But I think after the settlement ruling happens, you will see pretty quickly a move to one singular transfer portal. The decision is when to do it. And it seems like they're down to about 3 months: January, March, or April. And I think you'll probably I get the sense that they'll probably end up selling in March or April, whether it's like mid March to mid April or something like that. Um, and I think that's for a few reasons. One, you get the portal out of impacting bowl games and postseason games potentially. You get that kind of, even though if a student player doesn't want to play, they don't have to play. I mean, I
Yep.
guess, but you get the portal moved out of there. And now we'll have contracts potentially with stipulations that you must play in a game, or you don't get paid if you don't play in these games. So you'll have a little less of probably the opt-outs than we've seen before. But moving the portal out of that, out of the coaching craziness that happens with the silly season of the coaching moves, so you move that out. But also what it does, and this is just kind of like in the weeds of the House settlement, but the revenue share year, the payout year, is from from July 1 each year to June 30th next year. So it's your payout schedule ends every June. So if you're going to enter the portal and leave, right, it will more so align, the contracts will more align with the rev share year, instead of players leaving in December and having 6 months left on a rev share agreement or contract, right? They would leave maybe in April or May and just have a month or so left on a contract, maybe. So it aligns with that. And then, of course, we forget that they're all still in school, so or supposed to be. So it also aligns with the academic calendar a little more as well, because most classes in late April, early May, or so mid May. So you kind of align it there. So I would expect it to be a singular portal probably in the spring.
I've always said that I thought the spring portal would make sense. Also give the student athletes a chance to maybe go through spring ball, get to see where where they are in the depth chart, not make that quick decision right after the season when people are in their ears. I guess we were talking a little bit about it with some of these guys, and I guess maybe the contracts will stop them, but for example, the Xavier Lucas situation, where he technically never went into the portal because Wisconsin wouldn't put him in the portal, but he, ended up in Miami, unenrolled from Wisconsin, and enrolled in Miami. Will these contracts stop kids from doing that, or is the transfer portal going to end up a thing where someone's going to challenge it and they're going to say, who's going to stop me?
Yeah, that's kind of like the golden question, is if these contracts kind of binding, how binding are they? I think you'll see schools put in liquidated damages in contracts that are basically buyouts, like you would see in a normal coach's contract. If a player leaves, then that wherever they leave for, where they transfer to, that school has to basically buy out that player's contract, and that buyout will have to count against that school's revenue share pool for the next year. So there's a little bit of like a penalty for doing this. So you could see that. Now the issue is, not all schools will have the same type of contracts. They might not have the same buyouts. They might not have buyouts at all as an advantage, trying to get an advantage in recruiting. So it's not like all the same. But I think we will see more limited movement in the new kind of rev share era than we do now. And it's not saying a whole lot, because now it's crazy the amount of movement we're seeing. But I do think it will decrease based on a lot of different things. But number one, just buyouts in contracts, or longer agreement type of contracts.
You use words, the revenue sharing and contracts, and something I wanted to bring up, Ross, and I know there's been articles written about it, and there's been discussion about it amongst the conferences, and even some schools recently have siphoned off their athletic departments and their own LLCs and own governance. But the private equity piece, is that still something that's being talked about amongst the conferences or amongst individual athletic programs? It's something that
Yes.
comes in
Yeah.
behind this to supplement the cost of all this.
Right. Right. Um, yes, for sure. Uh, it's been a topic at the conference level a lot. I think plenty of schools are looking into it and exploring private equity and private capital, but it's been more of a discussion point, I think, at the conference level for some of these leagues, like the Big 12. It got all the way to the board, really. The Big 12 one trying to do like a private equity, private capital type of deal. The Big Ten's looking into some of it, private equity as well. And then I do think individual schools are looking into it. I think that's probably where we'll first see it happen. Somebody is probably going to do it at the individual school level to get an infusion of millions of dollars immediately to help build a roster, basically, and pay for fund Olympic sports and everything else. So I think I think we will see it happen again. A lot of people are waiting for the kind of the shoe to drop with the House case before doing a lot of this, and a ruling to come. And I think um, you're going to see private equity, private capital in college sports soon, whether it's at the school or the conference level. I think it will happen.
Ross, thank you for coming on, man. We always enjoy having you, and we always appreciate you taking the time. We're moving closer to football season, and so we can start talking about the product on the field a little bit more here soon. So we're excited about it. Thank you, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Good to join you guys.
Thanks,
All
Ross.
right. Thanks, Ross.